Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. It is Friday. It's going to be, I believe, a beautiful day in Kansas City. Ready for the final stretch of baseball. If anybody cares about my next 10 days, we just had a day off yesterday, 2 days off this week after 17 in a row. Now it's 10 in a row, and then that's it. The season's over. And this podcast will be continuing. I'm going to make some changes next month, which I'm really excited about, and I'll tell you about those soon. I've been mentioning, and I'll continue to mention, that if anyone wants to support Big Brothers Big Sisters, I'm doing a big fundraiser for them. You could text in JGold to 44321. Any bit helps. So massive fundraiser for their Most Wanted campaign, and I honored to be an honoree. You've got a lot of friends that are doing it too. So hope that you'll be able to support that. Also, a thanks to KCAV, Kansas City Audio Visual, for help with this studio. If you've got audio visual needs, check them out. And of course, Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you, for their collaboration and their partnership with this podcast. Today, I am excited to bring in my friend Nibal Henderson. And we're a few minutes late because I am of the belief that technical problems follow me everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's on my end or it's on my guest's end. They follow me everywhere. Who else out there can relate to that one? I think I actually got like a month long's worth of stuff figured out yesterday, thanks to some firewall issues. Anyway, Nibal, one of my favorite people in town. You'll understand why in a moment. How are you, my friend?
Hey, good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for scrambling to get yourself on
Yeah.
the air. And
Well,
I
I think it's
will,
probably my it's probably our firewall
it's okay.
that is dealing with it. So I'm going to try and hold my phone steady here for you.
Yeah, I
Let's
can
try.
I can mix up some shots too, and if you need to mess around with some things like that, I
Awesome.
could just
Thanks.
talk and take you
You're
off the
good to
hook a
go.
little bit.
There you go. I'm
So
fine.
good. You know, I could use that expression. That is so 2020. But that's what everybody says over and over again. Like I said to my wife the other day, I said, well, I mean, it could have been 2019 or 2021
Mm,
either. But that's like the point. Every time something goes a little bit wrong, it's like, oh, here's another one. And we could talk a
yeah.
little bit about that because really you are so well versed in so many different topics that we can go a lot of directions. I thought talking about disruption would be a really good topic today. But let's talk first off about your background. I'm not talking about personally. That in itself is fascinating with all of where you've been around the world. But how about professionally, and tell us, or at least my audience, a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently the director of learning and development for New Directions Behavioral Health. We're a managed mental health company. We have managed mental health on one side of the house. We do employee assistance programs. We have student assistance programs. And so out in the community, caring for people, about 16 million people across the country. Personally, I focus internally on our employees, caring for them. So all our people focus externally on our members while I focus internally on our employees, and my team does all of the training for them. I do a lot of the manager development, helping our managers understand how to support care for others, leadership development, and being able to equip our leaders to be able to ably lead our company. And then also a lot around employee engagement, culture, employee experience, how understanding how do you build a company that is a place where people want to work and want to participate and want to be committed. So I really get to do all the fun stuff every single day.
Yeah, well, and I think to a lot of people, and I hear that too, I'm like, my goodness, that sounds like a lot on your plate and a lot to deal with. But I think in having had the opportunity to get to know you over the last few years, that you thrive with all of those different elements. And I mean, I see you as, I don't know if problem solver is the right way to describe it, but as someone that is naturally curious, someone that is always looking for solutions. And you could correct me if I'm wrong. That's just my observation. But I love on your LinkedIn, and I posted this morning. It says you love people and culture, which might sound somewhat basic, but those are two of my favorite and most
Right,
important topics. And
right.
maybe it's why we connected among other reasons. But I want you to talk a little bit more about that, because it might sound simplistic, and it's anything but. A love of people and culture in the
Right.
workplace is oftentimes very complicated.
Well, it is. It is complicated. That's a good way to do it. Good way to say it. And we did connect over that. I remember our first coffee. That was a lot of fun. I think we couldn't stop talking. But it is. I do love people. And so what I love about people is helping them understand how do they remove the obstacles in order to be able to realize their full potential? For me, and that's part of my coaching heart. I've been a coach most of my life. Actually got certified at one point, but I don't think that changed anything because I've always been, like you said, helping people understand the big picture, solving for what are the obstacles, what is getting in the way of you realizing your potential, and then how do we overcome that? What are the steps we need to take? And so I do that personally, one-on-one with people. I do that organizationally. How do we look at what are the obstacles standing in the way and how do we overcome them? Maybe it's a new system, a new framework, a new behavior, a new understanding. A lot of it comes from helping people understand the power of self-awareness. And so when you look at a company, just like a team, it's people operating within systems. And so there are only, two variables there. You're going to solve for a people problem. I don't like to say it that way, but you get what I'm saying. Is
Hmm.
it behavioral? Is it knowledge? Is it skills? Or there's an organizational problem. Is there a framework or a system and a process that isn't working and needs to be optimized? And so to me, it's, that's the fun part. That's the curious part, right? Like, how are
Hmm.
you looking at both ends of the equation? And how do you solve? I'm a big football fan, so it's the same thing. Is it the right people? Are they in the wrong spot? Are we calling the wrong plays? Do we have the wrong system or formation? It's the same organizationally.
Yeah, and I love the football analogy better than the rest because, well, I guess it depends on the size of the company. I mean,
Yeah.
generally, a company isn't going to be more than the look in terms of, say, basketball, and you got 15 players,
Right.
but football, and it could be, I guess, but football is such a good example because you got 53 guys or whatever that number is on the
Yeah.
roster. And by the way, for any organization or any sport, it's not just the stars, it's not just the bench players. How about the coaches? How about the trainers? How about the front office? How about
Right.
on and on and on, right? I mean, it's a lot of moving parts and pieces that you have to get right.
Yeah. How many times have you seen a player struggle or, just not do well, not quite hitting that stride? And then they're at a new team and suddenly they're a star. And of course, the previous, the fans for the previous team are going, wait a minute, why didn't he do that for our team? Well, it just doesn't always work that way. And I think that's a part of solving for, X in a company. Do you have the right person? Are they in the right position? Do they have the right support? Are they really using their strengths and their skills and talents? And not only that, but we have to have the right system for them to be able to do that within the system. So I think it's so many different pieces. And if you're not looking at each individual piece, I think then we look at people and say, well, Jill, you're just not doing it right. You're just
Mhm.
not doing it right. And that's not fair to you. It's not always you. There are so many other variables. And if we're not looking at all of them, I think we're selling ourselves and people short.
Couldn't agree more. And the sports analogy also works because sometimes, and this is true in the workplace too, like you could sit there and measure everything by the numbers or performance, but how much do you know about the person, even on a personal side? And I know that we're often
Right.
programmed to hide the personal stuff or to leave the personal stuff at home. But who's to say, and I say this all the time with our athletes, we don't know what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how I'll use this example because I know that you're a big baseball fan and football fan and everything fan actually. But uh, Adalberto Mondesi is the most talented and athletic
Yeah.
Royals player that I've seen in my 13 years here, and he was awful for the first 6 weeks, and then suddenly like that, it
Yep.
turns on. It's like, oh, there he is. And who's to say it's physical? Who's to say it's mental? Who's
Right.
to say that something is simple, not simple really? What if there were, and I don't know this is true. What if he has a family member back at home dealing with COVID? What if
Right.
on and on and on and on and on? We don't know. That's no different than the office place. And when we sit there and just measure based on those numbers, which are important, we're not seeing the full picture.
Well, absolutely. And I think, you and I have talked about what are the silver linings of disruption? what are the silver linings of what's happened this year with both COVID, the pandemic, and also the civil unrest that we're experiencing in our country. And I think that silver lining is that we are starting to ask those questions at work. There's almost been this a bit of a taboo that maybe it hasn't completely fallen down. I think that wall will be there for a while with some people, but I'm seeing cracks in that wall. And I'm really glad because I think we have to solve for that. That's another one, what's going on. We can't push people to tell us more than they want to about their personal life. And certainly there are a lot of, HR rules around that. But I think we can be sensitive to saying, listen, I don't know if something else is going on, but if it is, I hope you'll, help me understand enough so that I can help you. What does that look like at work, and how do we support people in ways so that they are able to show up? And it also, we're seeing a shift. We used to have this compartmentalization, 8 to 5, you come to work, you put on your
Hmm.
work hat, you are work Joel from 8 to 5, and then you leave and some kind of transformation happens in your drive on the way home, kind of like Superman going into a phone booth, and now you're home Joel and you're two different people. Well, generationally, that's not going to work anymore. I mean, we're looking at a 50% millennial marketplace, and those millennials want work-life integration. They want to be the same person in all of their lives, in their work lives, in their personal lives, in their family. And they want to be able to represent themselves fully in all of that. I think I'm seeing that a lot. You'll resonate to this. So the one sport I don't really like is the squeaky shoes game. I'm not a big fan of squeaky shoes. But watching the basketball players and all that they've done in the NBA with coming out and being really outspoken, and I know it's happening in the NFL too, but people saying just play sports, right? Just be a player. Just you are only there for my entertainment. That's just not gonna work anymore in this current world. And the same, I think we can look at work and say, we can't say to you, just be work Joel, cut everything else off and leave it in your car when you walk into the building. That's
Hmm.
not going to work. We have to let people be fully themselves everywhere and find ways to build systems where that can happen.
I've never understood the whole shut up and dribble thing because
Oh,
which by the way only happens when you disagree with the person. And
true.
so if they happen to be saying what you like, you usually don't say anything at all.
Right.
Now, I don't want anything shoved down my throat, but I also have a choice as a consumer, as a fan, what to watch and what not to watch. But I just, I keep trying to encourage people to take a different stance and just say, how about asking why?
Yeah.
Okay, you're
Yeah.
speaking out on this, or you in the basketball sense. And they, by the way, probably of all the sports, that's probably the one I pay the least attention to, although I have found myself watching more because I sort of vowed during the pandemic, when these sports come back, I don't want to take it for granted. And I also have a lot of friends that love the NBA, and they keep telling me it's better than it's ever been. And I hadn't really watched since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I haven't lived in an NBA city for 30 years, but I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in Chicago in the middle of all the Michael Jordan stuff,
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
it was part of our everyday life. If the Bulls were playing 3 nights a week, we were watching every single moment, and you were hooked on it. I mean, we drove around in high school trying to stalk Michael Jordan, and if somehow we caught a glimpse of his car, I mean, it was the biggest thing, right? So, but that sport to me seems more advanced because they're willing not just to speak out, but to have that, they have that support. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel artificial. And
Yeah.
to me, I sit there and say, if you don't understand, then ask why.
Yeah. Yeah. Help
Why?
me
Why?
understand.
What are you doing? Help me understand. And
Yeah.
then we can have those dialogues back and forth. And I think it. And you were getting to this a little bit. I think that we're getting a little bit closer. I know it doesn't always feel like it with the news, but some of the news, but to having a little bit more comfort in those discussions around the office place. It's still a very uncomfortable topic, or maybe a different way of putting it is that more people are willing to be uncomfortable. Not everyone yet, and
Right.
I don't know
Right.
where that fits in the office place.
I don't know. I think there's definitely a place for it because here's what we know. Well, if you go back to employee experience and employee engagement, which companies are trying to solve for employee experience and employee engagement on a regular basis, we know that companies who have higher employee engagement have higher productivity and higher performance. Absolutely, the research is very clear on that. So when you look at that employee experience and you look at all the different indicators that lead to engagement, one of them is I feel like I belong. One of them is I have a friend at work. I mean, that's actually one of the indicators that you have an engaged workplace of engagement is that you have a friend at work. And so when we look at work from a sense of belonging, if we're asking people to leave part of themselves and part of a conversation out of work, how can we create belonging of work if we do that? And I think that's where it translates to the workplace, is that we have to have the hard conversations. And again, um, we're not pushing anything, but we are saying there is right and wrong, and here's treating each other with respect is always right. Allowing people to live with integrity is always right. And so how do you create that values driven workplace that's going to allow those things to come in, and having a place where people belong, where people can come and feel connected? That's what you want. That's how you're going to get to performance. So if you want to start with that end in mind and your ultimate goal is performance, that's fine. We're right back at the beginning with experience and making sure that people feel like they belong.
Right, which matters every single day. You got the
Oh
vote of
yeah.
approval from my friend Kiana,
Oh,
and if you get the vote of approval from Kiana, you're doing well.
wow.
And so, yeah, I don't know if you guys know each other. I should connect you
We
because
don't.
she's
Uh-uh.
awesome. I just, if all this is going to sound like a bad statement to is it 20 by the way, is a 25-year-old still a millennial? Kiana's going to kill me for that statement.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
so.
they're on the
Right
edge.
on the
Yeah.
cusp, right?
Yeah.
Right. You and I have Gen Zers. Is that how you'd say it, right?
Yeah. Our kids are Gen Zers.
Our
Yeah.
kids are Gen Zers. We've got teenagers around the same age. But no, I was going to say, like, I have so much hope for the millennials and Gen Z. I
Yes.
am not those kids. That makes me cringe when you hear people do that. The same way
Yeah.
that our parents or that generation did it for us. And it's like, look, there's so much good coming here right now. I really believe that the
Yeah.
next couple generations are ultimately going to make the world a better place. I really, and that might sound all kumbaya. I don't know, but I have a lot of hope for what they see and the way that they're going about things differently, just as we went about things differently. It's a good thing. And so Kiana at 25 years old is doing so many things in this community as an activist and much more that I could never. I was just trying to figure out how to talk somewhat
Yeah.
successfully on TV at 25 years old. So I'll connect you
Yeah.
guys. Our friend Lauren
That's
Conaway
awesome.
also says hi.
Hey,
Lauren's going to be on the show
Lauren.
soon too. So
Oh, good.
another
Speaking
power
of a
player.
dynamo, right?
I was
Power
about to
player
say,
indeed.
yeah,
How has she
no,
accomplished so much in such a short amount of time? I mean, I'm always
I don't
impressed
know.
with Lauren,
Yeah,
and that makes
yeah,
me feel old because I'm like, wow, she
me
has
too.
got it going on. She is,
Yeah,
I can't wait to hear her talk to you. That'll be great.
she is, I believe, next week or it might be the week after. I'd have to look at the calendar,
Awesome.
but it's on the calendar. I know that one. Lauren, you know it too. So I'm excited to have Lauren on. But I want to talk a little bit more about disruption
Yeah.
because you wrote a phenomenal essay. I don't even remember now. I feel like it was April. I
I
don't
don't
know. Like
know. It's
I
all
just
a time
label.
warp.
Not
Yeah.
that you would have that right off the top of your head either, but it was earlier pandemic, when we were all
Yes.
reaching out to each other and helping each other and all that type of stuff. And I remember reading it saying this is amazing. But I think one of the things right now about disruption, maybe more than ever, is that we're all dealing with it.
Yeah.
And disruption has always been a part of life. I say in one of my speeches that we're living in unprecedented times. And Simon Sinek says they really aren't unprecedented times
Oh,
because we've
yeah.
always had disruption. And I agree with that. However, we have never in our lifetime and in our generation and the generation that preceded us, and certainly the generations after, we have never dealt with the disruption of a pandemic before. And so this is one where truly everyone, like Cynic talks about Blockbuster to Netflix,
Right. Right.
having that DVD to streaming, uh, cab companies, Uber. But that doesn't necessarily affect everyone. This thing affects
Right.
the billionaires all the way down to someone that is looking for a home or a job or what. It doesn't
Right.
like in different ways. So how would you view this disruption in terms of history, and then we'll dig a little bit deeper in terms of the good that can come of it?
Wow. Well, I mean, there's so many layers. Like you're right. I
Yeah,
mean, we're all experiencing it. It's interesting to watch across the country how people are dealing with it. I mean, corporately, I think it's changed the way we work. I mean, our company's gone, and we were already at 65% remote, but we're at 100% remote now, and no no plans to come back the rest of the year. We're out till January. A lot of companies are doing the same thing. Even some of the West Coast companies have said they're out till June. So from a corporate standpoint, I think it's shifted the way we do work and the way we define work, and understanding that work doesn't mean, bottom and seat from 8 to 5. So I think it's changed that. I think it's also really shown us, I think one of the things I said in the article was disruption is shining a light and shows us all the cracks. And I think we're seeing a lot of our cracks in our system. And
Mhm.
I hope we soon work together to start fixing those cracks instead of spending more time trying to sort of cover them up or ignore them, or maybe even just blame about them. Because I think we're seeing cracks in our mental health systems. We're seeing cracks in our schools. We're seeing cracks in a lot of our infrastructure and the way that people have access to food and healthcare. So I don't know. I think historically, this is a pretty crazy time. Watching um, things fall apart, but in a way they need to in order to fall back together in a new way. So I'm looking around thinking, who are the new, excuse me, who are the new leaders and how are they leading us there? And then looking at the 25, I'm sorry, and thinking, they are growing up in this. I mean, our kids, I think yours is just a year behind mine. My son, I was pregnant with him during 9/11, and now
Mhm.
he just went to college. He's a freshman in college during a pandemic, doing some online, some in person, wearing masks everywhere, and being
Yeah.
tested weekly for COVID on his college campus. So, how is that affecting these generations, and what will that look like? I don't know that I have answers, but I'm definitely curious and excited for the conversations, and excited to see the opening of all the conversations and how we can hopefully come together to solve.
Well, I think that the question to ask, and we don't have to have all the answers right now, but I think the
Right,
question to ask or the perspective to have is that we can't wait for this to
right,
end, because
right.
when it does end, it won't be like we're not just going back to the way things were, right? That's that
No.
disruption. And so what I've heard from so many executives is, how about we embrace this and see what opportunity we have? What can we do with this? Because it will not
Yeah.
look the same on the other side.
Well, and I think that is the biggest dangerous thing. The most biggest danger is to wait for all these people who say, I can't wait to get back to normal. Wow, that is a dangerous, dangerous expectation and or goal or whatever it is. First of all, there was never a normal, so that was already unrealistic, and there's no going back. Do you want to go back? I don't want to go back. I've learned so much about who we are and how we work and what the cracks are. I want to go forward and fix them and work together and find new ways. And so this whole yearning for normal, I think, sets people up for failure because there is none. So instead, we should be looking forward and say, okay, I got you, 2020. What's next? What does this next look like? And instead, if we get this what's next mentality and think about what does the new look like? What does next look like? Who do I need to be to walk into 2021? What does our company need to be? What does our neighborhood need to be, our school? And I think when we're looking forward and solving for next, I think we're better positioned. I heard, I know, I'm sure you read a lot of people that I do, but Patrick Lencioni, who's also one of my favorite thought leaders, he on a podcast a few weeks ago said he was sharing a quote that he heard, that he said, somebody said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And that quote has just stuck with me. Like, are we planting trees, or are we just staring at the ground, bemoaning the fact that there is no tree there? I mean, we can't waste our energy that way.
Hey, uh, I'm I'm thinking as you're saying that, because I just had a little discussion with longtime friend of mine yesterday, Jeff Landsman. He's been on the show before, and or at least the audio one a couple times. He and I grew up together, and he's got his own business. He's an editor. He used to work for Oprah, all that, and so we'll go back and forth with the I'm in a hot streak. I'm on a cold streak right now, and it's always the same like kind of reminder of, hey, okay, you're having, and entrepreneurs can certainly understand this, certainly, and the independent contractors, you have your down times, and we always try to remind each other about the importance of planting seeds. So if you're not winning today or you're in a
Yeah.
losing streak today, that
Yeah.
next winning streak will come because of
Right.
what you do today. I feel like for me, I'm not the least bit panicked about baseball season ending next week. It's weird because I feel like we just started, but I have all this stuff set up right now because of all of the work put in April, May, and
Right.
June. And
Right.
I view this pandemic right now with all the scary stuff that's involved with it and everything that's going on, as you mentioned before, with the racial injustice and the protests. But I view this all as an opportunity
Yeah.
personally to be able to build and to plant those seeds, but also just as a society to work on what everything that you're talking about. And I almost look at it too. I'll use the sports analogy, which I do often, but I know that you like them too, is look at baseball right now. And people didn't really a lot of people didn't like this whole
Yeah.
extra innings starting a runner on second base. It cheapens the game. This isn't history. This isn't tradition. And
Yeah.
some of the different things that have come of this, but we have this opportunity to try it right now and
Yeah.
see if it works or not. Maybe it takes off and people are more interested in it, but what an opportunity to see.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a time to experiment. It's a time to be curious. It's time to, I mean, where's the failure? So we started a guy on second in extra bases. Did we like it? Yeah. Did it work? Great. Did it not? Fine. We can change the rules again next year. There's no, I mean, it doesn't have to be set in stone. I don't see the, there's no failure in trying. There's no failure in something that's going to teach you something about yourself. And I think when you adopt that mindset, then you're going to be like, all right, how about this? I wonder if, what does this
Mhm.
look like? And I think when you get that, I wonder, mentality going on and you're like, I wonder if, or have we ever thought of, there's no, what's the bad in that? I'm not seeing the bad in that. So
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. I just, and all of it. I mean, I'm sitting here in my spare bedroom right now, and
Yeah, I
I've
know.
done how many interviews for a
Yeah.
Major League Baseball broadcast out of here,
Yeah. Exactly.
in a suit and tie and
Yeah.
shorts, if I'm really
Yeah.
being honest, and
Yeah.
it's okay. Like it's fine and it works. And
Yeah.
people keep saying, I don't know how you guys are doing these games. They're on the road and blah blah blah. And it's like, you know what? It's not as easy, but in the end, the final result's working. And so
No.
um, I hope we don't. I hope we can get back to a little bit of the way things were before, from a standpoint of it's actually hard not traveling with the team and having that
Yeah.
connectivity and having to. It's a whole different discussion, but having to maintain, sustain, and build these relationships from a distance, like
Yeah.
everybody else right now.
Of course.
But you also can pull some, whatever it goes back to or doesn't go back to, or whatever next year
Mm.
looks like from a broadcast standpoint. We will have more tools in our tool belt, and we will have some different, maybe better practices of doing things. So I think that that's, ultimately the message there. And just one more final thought on disruption. I mean, it's uncomfortable, but hasn't disruption, and I alluded to this before, been a part of our lives and the part of the history of this world since day one?
Well, I don't think there's change without disruption, right? How can you ever have change without disruption? And sometimes you own the disruption, you're creating the disruption. A lot of times it's cast upon you. But I mean, I'm not seeing, again, I don't have a negative view of disruption. But again, as you know, I immigrated to America at the age of 13. You want to talk about disruption? I mean, that's uprooting a girl at the age of 13 from the Middle East and bringing her to Houston, Texas. That was disruption. I could have, and I probably spent some time missing my friends and yearning for my old school and systems that I understood. But then at some point, you turn around and look up and out and think, all right, what's next, right? Who am I now? Who do I get to be now? What do I need to learn? How do I need to move forward? And so maybe it's the immigrant in me, but I'm a big fan of disruption. And I've lived in 5 different states and cities now, 4 different states, 5 different cities. And each time I feel like I've been uprooted and planted again. I've learned so much about myself. I've grown in ways that I couldn't have if I had just stayed in Houston, Texas for the last, 30 years. That just wouldn't have happened. As much as I love Houston, but it wouldn't have happened.
So that's where I wanted to go. A little bit of the background. I know we covered it when you were on the audio podcast a couple of years ago, but it's fascinating to me because who else has this on their resume of where they've lived? Now you can correct me on the order here, but I believe it's Kuwait or probably
Right.
Kuwait City,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
assume, right?
Kuwait. Yeah. It's Ahmadi in Kuwait. It's a smaller
Okay,
town. Yeah.
okay. So I don't. How far is that from Kuwait City, by the way? I don't even remember.
I think it was 45 minutes, maybe.
Okay,
It's a
all
small
right.
town. Yeah.
I feel like we might have driven by there on the way to one of the bases when I was over on the USO tour.
Yeah.
Either way, all right. So Kuwait, Houston,
Yeah.
Nashville.
Nope. Dallas, because I went to SMU.
That's right. Dallas, um, Nashville,
Then
Charlotte,
Nashville. Yeah.
and Charlotte too, right?
Yeah. Nashville, then Charlotte, then here.
And
Yeah.
then Kansas City for a
Yep.
lot of years now.
Good memory.
It's a phenomenal perspective though, in terms of
Yeah.
I mean you talk about culture and not
Yeah.
just culture in the office place, and you talk about diversity and inclusion. I mean, you're talking about living in some really different places there, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing that that's really helped shape you to who you are.
I think so. I think one, being the other in a lot of different places gives you sensitivity always to looking around and seeing, who's the other in this room. I'm not always the other, but I have been, and so I think I have that sensitivity. I think learning different cultural, being in Texas. I mean, that's a whole world unto itself, and then going to Nashville, which is very old South, very old Southern systems. Charlotte, which sort of has a blend of New South and almost some East Coast, because you've got a lot of what they call halfbacks, people who left the Northeast and went to Florida and came halfway back because Florida was too hot for them. And you have a lot of transplants because of banking and the other industries there. And then moving to the Midwest, which was a whole new cultural system for me, understanding Kansas City in the Midwest. So I do love that, and love that I have learned so much from each of these cultures and approaches and how you talk to and interact with people. Yeah, that's been a beautiful, beautiful part of the journey.
You said something there that triggered a quick little memory, and I think it was my friend Andre Davis who said this. I don't know for sure, but he's talking about when you walk into a room or a meeting or whatever it is, and when you look and maybe you see that there's only one black person in the room,
Yeah.
uh, walk over and engage. Like they're
Yeah.
the one, potentially that one outsider, and they're living with that. They've
Yeah.
lived with that their whole lives often, and it's like I'm guessing that was you. And I can only relate in the sense that we moved to Chicago when I was 13, and I think I don't know 4 or 5 days before the start of eighth grade. That's a scary age for any kid,
Yeah.
and
It
but
is.
here you are being dropped into a middle school or junior high in Texas from Kuwait, not
Yeah.
as someone that was moving back to the United States, someone that was moving to the States for the first time. I would just happen to be a kid from the East Coast that was being dropped into this, classroom. And I can still remember, I still feel that fear of walking into that homeroom
Yeah.
that
Oh,
first day and not knowing one soul in the school outside of my brother, who I wanted nothing to do with being in the sixth grade and, being my little brother. But
yeah.
I do think about that a lot when you walk into a place, and can you take that extra step to go and make that connection with someone that looks like maybe they don't feel like they belong, or that they're trying to fight their way through it, or that they're different.
But look at you. I mean, think about what happened to you when you were in eighth grade, what you learned about yourself and your ability to walk into a room, and how does that serve you now? I mean,
Mm.
how many new rooms do you walk into now? How many new people do you meet now? And so I think those kind of formative experiences, those are minor disruptions in our life, or somewhat major
Mhm.
anyway, somewhere along the spectrum. But I think they form us and teach us something. And again, I'm not one to be mad about that. That's all beautiful. It's part of that
Embrace it.
journey.
Mhm.
Absolutely, you have to embrace all of that, and just think about, okay, well, what has that taught me about me, about myself, about who I can be, about what I can do, and I think it just opens up a whole lot of world for you.
Yeah. I have one other, Becky Wilson, who is watches the show on a regular basis. Sent me
Hi,
some.
Becky.
So she would like an introduction. I'll take care of that one too. I'm
Absolutely.
happy to help. Happy to help
I
connect.
love that.
Yeah.
That
No,
feels really good. That's really nice.
no, it's great. Before we wrap up, we need to talk about a different type of culture, and that would be food and also sports, I guess. And you talked about a different world in Texas. I thought
Yeah,
that they believed that that they were their own country anyway,
we
right?
are. Yeah,
I
we
know.
are. It's
We
okay. We are.
it
Always
was
be a
funny.
Texan. Doesn't matter
I
where I
called
live. I'll always be a Texan.
I called Hunter Dozier the other day to get a story for in game about he's been playing first base every day. He was supposed to play right field, and he said, I thought you were calling to talk about the Dallas Stars going to the Stanley Cup. I said, I'll drop it in on the broadcast, okay? As a guy that sat next to him last year as the Stars were being eliminated by my St. Louis Blues in double overtime, and we had
Oh.
just got back to the hotel, and I'm sitting there, uh, the game restarted out of the intermission right as we pulled into the hotel. So we go right down to the hotel bar area, and it's me and it's him and it's Whit Merrifield and I think Cam Gallagher, and they could care less about the game. But as soon as St. Louis won and eliminated Dallas, they're all over him as good,
Of
as good
course.
teammates
Of
would
course.
be. And he's such a good guy. So I dropped that in there the other day. But I know that you are as avid of a football fan. I don't remember how you said it to me when we first met,
Oh,
other than warning me that you are off the charts.
yeah.
Uh, who would think a girl from Kuwait ends up being like as big of a football
I
fan
know, right?
as there is? I mean,
Well,
it
when you
it, it
pop a girl in Texas at the age of 13, I mean, what else are you going to do?
right. So tell me who your teams are.
You know who my team is. It's the Dallas Cowboys forever and always.
I guess we're allowed to
I
disagree on
know.
some things, right?
I know. I know. I mean, how are we still friends? But that's how
I
much I
don't know.
respect you. I still,
Yeah,
love you, friend,
I'm
despite
looking.
your
I'm looking.
allegiances.
I'm looking past this.
I know.
Growing up as an Eagles fan, and I'm not as much a fan anymore. I mean, I just, sports is business to me. If I want my true pleasure being just a fan, I look at the University of Wisconsin since that's my
Yeah.
school, and I'm an alum there. But I, growing up an Eagles fan out east before we moved, there were really only three rules in being an Eagles fan. You don't like the Giants, you don't like the Cowboys, you don't like the Redskins. That's it. Which
Pretty
one do you
much.
like? Which one do you dislike the most? All of them. That was it
All
pretty
of
much for
them.
me.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
There are only three teams that I don't like. And there are only three categories. One, the Washington Redskins.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I don't use
fair.
the word hate much, but at the top of my hate list would be the Washington Redskins. You're
The
not going to like
Washington football team, by the way.
That's right. They're the Washington football team. You're not going to like this next one because the second team that I will forever not like is the St. Louis Cardinals. But I grew up in Houston as an Astros fan, so the
Okay.
Cardinals were forever our nemesis. And then for some reason, any team from Atlanta, I just can't get into any
Hmm.
Atlanta teams.
All
I
right.
don't like them. And
That's
the
fair.
Cowboys play the Falcons this Sunday, so we'll see what
Ooh,
happens. Yeah,
very
in
interesting.
in Dallas, in Dallas.
Interesting.
I know. By
I
the way,
will.
Hunter Dozier is just doing great at first base. I'm just
He is
loving
doing
watching
great.
him. He's doing a
And
great job. All those
yeah,
guys. I'm loving the
yeah,
games. I'm
yeah.
sad there's
No,
only
it's.
10 left.
I know. Well, we'll enjoy playoffs and hopefully,
Yeah.
uh, it won't be us, but we'll see. And okay, the other question I had for you, and the St. Louis thing. I mean, we're gone 13 years from
Yeah.
there, so I didn't grow up there. So to me, like, I don't really even know. There's two guys left on the team there that were there when I was there. So, nothing personal. Then and plus, you come to Kansas City and you work Royals every single day. It's
I
one or the
know.
other. It can't be both. So
All
that one's
Royals
an
all the
easy.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's an easy one. Okay, I think you and I got into a pretty good. I wouldn't even call it debate, but when the whole Patrick Mahomes Whataburger thing was going on, and I said,
Yes.
"All right, that's the one thing we could take from Texas," and you said, "Well, wait a minute, there's another one too. I mean, Torchy's Tacos is coming." So
Yes.
we did pick up some Torchy's recently, and
Oh, good.
oh my goodness,
Did you
yeah.
have the queso? Please tell me you had the queso.
Oh, we had the queso.
Oh,
We had the queso,
I mean, is there anything better? I love that place. I
and
and they're
my
they're
son
like
wanted to
five
get like
minutes from
four
my
tacos.
house.
My son
Yeah.
wanted to get like four tacos. We're like, you don't
Yeah.
need that many. I know you're a big kid. You don't need that
Mm,
many.
I mean, it's
Oh my
okay.
goodness.
I think you should
Just,
let the kid have all the tacos he wants.
and I
It's
know
just
he
good
just,
stuff. I know, and it's 5 minutes from here, which is
oh,
dangerous. And yeah, I love them. I'm a big Torchy's fan. That used to be the first place I'd stop when I went to Houston, but now they're here. So really good stuff.
it's so good. And then people argue about the burgers all the time, but there is to me not a like my California friends will kill me if they hear me saying Whataburger's the best, but to me it is.
It
We
really
get there and
is.
we get there twice a year in a normal time with Dallas and Houston playing the Rangers
Yeah.
um and the Astros, and so I love it. And the correct pronunciation is Whataburger, right?
Right.
That's what they
Whataburger.
say down there. Not like that's
Yep.
not the way it looks. I don't know why I went off on that tangent because now I'm getting hungry, but I just knew that we definitely shared
Yeah,
some common interests, if you will, there. A little
absolutely.
taste of Texas. My buddy Frank Clay, who is the president of the Kansas City chapter of the National Speakers Association, says the art of welcoming others is a way forward. Let's teach it. And I think we can
I
end on
love
that note
it.
because that's those are beautiful words from
Thank
Mr.
you,
Frank Clay
Frank.
Jr.
I love
Yeah.
it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Joel. Always fun talking to you.
Well, I enjoyed it, and it's look, I always love these conversations because they're engaging, and that's what I wanted to bring to everyone today. So
Yeah,
I'm glad we got the technology worked out. That's a battle
I
every
know.
single day. And by the way, that's like the kid walking into the room or the dog coming into a meeting, and it's like, oh my god, it's okay. It's not, it's just
It worked out. It worked out. I'm here.
it
I'm just
it
glad my
always
cell phone stayed propped up the whole time.
yeah.
So we're good.
No, it did.
We're good to
All
go.
right, Nibal, have a great weekend. Hang
Thank
tight for
you.
just a second. Appreciate it.
Thanks, friend.
All right, one of my favorite people, because I just love those conversations. So glad that we had the chance to visit with Nibal. Thanks to everybody for messaging in too, and can't believe it. The weekend is here. Got a weekend full of baseball as the Royals are in Milwaukee, so I'm excited for that one. Those are some of my old stomping grounds too, having worked and gone to school in Wisconsin for all of these years. But hope everybody stays safe out there. Thanks for watching. Again, a reminder, I'd love it if you'd help me out with my Big Brothers Big Sisters fundraiser. Any amount helps. You can text JGold to 44321. JGold to 44321. Thanks to my friends at KCAV, Kansas City Audio Visual. If you've got audio visual needs, check them out or let me know. I can help make that connection. And of course, to my partners at Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you. Thank you all. See you next Monday. Have a great weekend.